You've been told that walking is the best exercise after 60. But what if that advice is quietly setting you up for a fall? What if the very routine you trust every day is not enough to protect your body when it matters most? Here's the reality: most people never hear until it's too late. The number one reason adults over 60 lose their independence is not age, it's not even disease. It's the gradual loss of strength and control in one critical movement. And once that movement is gone, everything begins to collapse. Balance, confidence, mobility, even the ability to live alone. But here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. This loss is not inevitable. In fact, there is one exercise, just one, that, when mastered, can dramatically reduce your risk of falling, rebuild your strength, and restore your sense of control over your own body. This is not a trend, not a gimmick, and not something you need a gym for. This is a movement your body was designed to do every single day. Yet, most people are doing it wrong or avoiding it completely, and that mistake is costing them their freedom. Today, you're going to understand exactly why this one exercise matters more than anything else after 60, and how mastering it could be the difference between staying independent or relying on others for the rest of your life. Pay close attention, because once you see this, you won't look at your daily routine the same way again. Muscle loss after the age of 60 is often dismissed as a normal, harmless part of aging, but that belief is dangerously incomplete. What appears to be simple weakness is, in reality, a biological shift that directly impacts independence, stability, and long-term survival. The human body does not merely slow down with age. It undergoes a measurable decline in muscle mass and strength, a process known as sarcopenia. This process accelerates significantly after 60, and without deliberate intervention, it quietly erodes the very foundation that supports everyday movement and autonomy. Every step you take, every time you stand up, every moment you maintain your balance depends on muscular strength working in coordination with your nervous system. When muscle fibers shrink and lose efficiency, the body becomes less capable of responding to sudden changes, like a misstep, a slippery surface, or even a slight shift in weight. This is where the real danger begins. A body that cannot react quickly is a body that is vulnerable, and vulnerability is what leads to falls, injuries, and a cascade of complications that can permanently alter quality of life. What makes this issue more urgent is how silently it progresses. Unlike pain, which demands attention, muscle loss often goes unnoticed until it reaches a critical point. You may not feel weaker day by day, but over months and years, the decline accumulates. Tasks that once felt effortless, climbing stairs, rising from a chair, carrying groceries, gradually become more challenging. This is not coincidence. It is the direct consequence of diminishing muscular strength and power, particularly in the lower body, where strength is most essential for mobility and balance. The consequences extend far beyond inconvenience. Reduced muscle strength is strongly linked to increased risk of falls, and falls are one of the leading causes of injury and hospitalization in older adults. A single fall can result in fractures, reduced mobility, and a loss of confidence that leads to further inactivity. That inactivity accelerates muscle loss even more, creating a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to reverse. Independence begins to slip away, not in one dramatic moment, but through a series of small, compounding losses that could have been prevented. Equally important is the connection between muscle health and overall survival. Muscle tissue is not just for movement. It plays a critical role in metabolism, blood sugar regulation, and even immune function. When muscle mass declines, the body's ability to manage these systems weakens. This increases susceptibility to chronic conditions, delays recovery from illness, and reduces resilience in the face of physical stress. In simple terms, stronger muscles contribute to a stronger, more capable body that can withstand the challenges of aging with greater stability. The most overlooked aspect of this issue is that it is not irreversible. The body retains its ability to adapt and rebuild muscle at any age, provided it is given the right stimulus. Strength is not reserved for the young. It is a biological capacity that remains accessible even in later decades, but it requires intentional effort. Without that effort, the decline continues unchecked. With it, the trajectory can change dramatically, restoring not just physical capability, but also confidence and independence. Understanding muscle loss as a central threat, not a minor inconvenience, changes the way aging should be approached. It shifts the focus from passive acceptance to active preservation. It demands attention, not later, but now, before the consequences become visible and harder to reverse. Because once strength is lost beyond a certain point, regaining it becomes more difficult, and the window of opportunity begins to narrow. This is not about fear, it is about clarity. Muscle loss after 60 is one of the most decisive factors influencing how long and how well a person can live independently. Recognizing its impact is the first step toward protecting that independence and ensuring that aging does not mean surrendering control over one's own body and life. Walking is often presented as the gold standard of exercise after 60, a safe and accessible activity that keeps the body moving and the heart engaged. While walking does offer cardiovascular benefits, relying on it as the primary or only form of exercise creates a critical gap in physical resilience. Movement alone is not the same as strength, and without strength, movement gradually becomes less stable, less efficient, and ultimately more dangerous. The body requires more than repetition of motion. It requires the ability to generate force, control that force, and respond to unexpected challenges. Walking by itself does not sufficiently train these capabilities. It is a low-impact, forward-moving activity that operates within a narrow range of motion. It does not challenge the muscles to grow stronger in meaningful ways, nor does it significantly improve the body's ability to stabilize itself when balance is threatened. Over time, this imbalance between movement and strength becomes more pronounced. As muscle mass declines with age, simply continuing to walk does little to reverse the underlying issue. In fact, it can create a false sense of security. Many older adults believe that as long as they remain active through walking, they are protecting their health. However, activity without targeted strength development does not address the root cause of instability. The muscles responsible for supporting posture, controlling joint movement, and absorbing impact remain undertrained. When these muscles are weak, even a routine walk can become risky, especially on uneven surfaces or in unpredictable environments. Balance is not a passive ability. It is an active process that depends on strength, coordination, and the integration of sensory input from the eyes, inner ear, and muscles. Walking does not adequately train this system. It follows a predictable pattern, which means the body is rarely forced to adapt. Real-world situations, however, are rarely predictable. A sudden obstacle, a change in terrain, or a momentary distraction can disrupt balance. Without the strength to recover quickly, the risk of falling increases significantly. Another limitation of walking is its inability to strengthen the lower body in a functional, comprehensive way. The muscles of the hips, thighs, and core are essential for maintaining stability and generating power. These muscles are responsible for actions such as standing up from a seated position, climbing stairs, and preventing a fall when balance is compromised. Walking engages these muscles only minimally. It does not challenge them through their full range of motion, nor does it apply the level of resistance needed to stimulate growth and improvement. The consequences of relying solely on walking become evident over time. Individuals may notice that despite walking regularly, they feel less stable, slower to react, and more cautious in their movements. This caution often leads to reduced activity, which further accelerates muscle loss. It becomes a gradual decline, masked by the belief that enough is being done, when in reality, a critical component of physical health is being neglected. Strength training and stability-focused movements are not optional additions. They are essential elements of a complete approach to aging well. They directly address the deficits that walking cannot. They build the capacity to control the body under stress, to recover from imbalance, and to maintain independence in the face of physical challenges. Without them, the foundation remains weak, no matter how many steps are taken each day. This is not an argument against walking. It is a correction of a widespread misconception. Walking should be part of a broader strategy, not the entire strategy. When combined with exercises that build strength and enhance balance, it becomes far more effective. On its own, it is insufficient to meet the demands of an aging body that requires both movement and the ability to support that movement with strength and control. Understanding this distinction is critical. It shifts the focus from simply staying active to becoming physically capable. It recognizes that true health after 60 is not measured by how often you move, but by how well your body can handle the demands placed upon it. Without strength and stability, movement becomes fragile. With them, it becomes a tool for maintaining independence, confidence, and long-term well-being. The belief that the body becomes incapable of meaningful improvement after a certain age is one of the most limiting and misleading ideas in modern health. It suggests that decline is inevitable, that strength once lost cannot be regained, and that effort yields diminishing returns beyond a certain point. This belief is not supported by physiology. The human body retains its ability to adapt, rebuild, and strengthen well into later decades of life, provided it is given the correct stimulus and sufficient consistency. At the center of this capability is the principle of adaptation. Muscles respond to demand. When they are challenged through resistance and controlled movement, they respond by becoming stronger, more coordinated, and more efficient. This process does not stop at 60, 70, or even 80. While the rate of adaptation may be slower compared to younger years, the capacity itself remains intact. The body continues to build new muscle proteins, strengthen neural pathways, and improve functional performance when exposed to appropriate training. This is not theoretical. It is observed repeatedly in controlled environments and real-world settings. Older adults who engage in structured strength and balance training demonstrate measurable gains in muscle mass, power, and coordination within weeks. These improvements translate directly into better mobility, greater stability, and reduced risk of falls. Tasks that once required effort begin to feel manageable again, not because the body has been restored to youth, but because it has been reconditioned to meet the demands placed upon it. The nervous system plays a critical role in this transformation. Strength is not only a function of muscle size, but also of how effectively the brain communicates with those muscles. With targeted exercise, the connection between the nervous system and muscle fibers becomes more efficient, movements become more controlled, reaction times improve, and balance becomes more reliable. This neuromuscular adaptation is particularly important in older adults, as it directly influences the ability to prevent falls and respond to sudden changes in position. Another factor often overlooked is confidence. Physical decline is frequently accompanied by a psychological shift. As individuals feel weaker or less stable, they begin to avoid certain movements or activities. This avoidance leads to further deconditioning, reinforcing the perception of limitation. When strength and coordination begin to improve through consistent training, confidence follows. The body feels more capable, and that sense of capability encourages continued activity, creating a positive cycle rather than a downward spiral. It is also important to recognize that the benefits of rebuilding strength extend beyond mobility. Improved muscle function supports better joint stability, reducing strain and discomfort during daily activities. It enhances metabolic health, contributing to better regulation of blood sugar and energy levels. It even influences posture and breathing, allowing the body to operate more efficiently as a whole. These changes are not superficial. They represent a fundamental shift in how the body functions and responds to stress. The key to unlocking this potential lies in precision and consistency. Random movement is not enough. The body must be challenged in a way that is both safe and progressive. Exercises must target the muscles that matter most for stability and independence, particularly in the lower body and core. They must be performed with control, attention, and proper form to ensure that the desired adaptations occur. Over time, as the body responds, the level of challenge can be increased, reinforcing the process of improvement. Age does not eliminate the ability to change. It only alters the conditions under which change occurs. With the right approach, the body remains responsive, capable, and resilient. The difference between decline and improvement is not determined by age alone, but by whether the body is given a reason to adapt. Understanding this shifts the narrative entirely. It replaces the expectation of loss with the possibility of progress. It reinforces the idea that strength, balance, and mobility are not fixed traits, but dynamic qualities that can be developed at any stage of life. The opportunity to rebuild is not reserved for the young. It remains available to anyone willing to engage the body with intention and consistency, regardless of the number of years behind them. Falls are commonly dismissed as unpredictable accidents, random events that occur without warning, but this perception is both misleading and dangerous. In reality, most falls are the visible outcome of a gradual and measurable decline in physical capacity. They are not isolated incidents. They are the final expression of weaknesses that have been developing over time within the body's systems, responsible for strength, balance, and coordination. At the core of every stable movement is the ability to control the body's center of mass over its base of support. This control depends on a combination of muscular strength, joint stability, and precise communication between the brain and the body. When any of these components begins to deteriorate, the margin for error narrows. A movement that once required little effort becomes more demanding, and the body's ability to correct small disturbances is reduced. Lower body strength plays a decisive role in this process. The muscles of the hips, thighs, and calves are responsible for absorbing impact, maintaining posture, and generating the force needed to stabilize the body during movement. When these muscles weaken, the body becomes less capable of supporting itself during everyday activities. Simple actions such as stepping onto a curb, turning quickly, or recovering from a slight stumble require more effort than the body can produce. This is where instability begins to take hold. Equally important is neuromuscular control, the system that allows the body to respond rapidly and accurately to changes in position. Balance is not a static state. It is a continuous adjustment process. The body constantly receives information from the eyes, inner ear, and sensory receptors in the muscles and joints. This information is processed by the brain, which then sends signals to the muscles to make precise corrections. When this system is functioning efficiently, these adjustments happen almost instantly, often without conscious awareness. With age and inactivity, this system becomes less responsive. Reaction times slow, coordination diminishes, and the accuracy of these adjustments declines. The result is a delayed or inadequate response to disturbances. A small slip or shift that would have been corrected effortlessly in the past can now lead to a loss of balance. The body simply cannot react quickly or effectively enough to prevent a fall. Environmental factors often receive the blame, but they are rarely the primary cause. Uneven surfaces, poor lighting, or obstacles may contribute, but they only expose the underlying doff in the body's ability to respond. A physically prepared body can navigate these challenges with minimal risk. A deconditioned body cannot. The difference lies in strength, coordination, and the ability to generate rapid corrective movements when stability is threatened. The consequences of a fall extend far beyond the immediate injury. Even when physical damage is limited, the psychological impact can be significant. Fear of falling often leads to reduced activity, which in turn accelerates the decline in strength and coordination. This creates a reinforcing cycle where decreased movement leads to greater doff, and greater doff increases the likelihood of another fall. Over time, independence becomes compromised not only by physical limitations, but also by a loss of confidence in the body's ability to perform safely. Preventing falls, therefore, is not about avoiding risk entirely. It is about building a body that is capable of managing risk effectively. This requires targeted development of lower body strength, improved joint stability, and enhanced neuromuscular coordination. It involves training the body to respond quickly and efficiently to unexpected challenges, restoring the ability to maintain balance under a variety of conditions. This perspective reframes the issue completely. Falls are not random misfortunes. They are predictable outcomes that can be influenced and, in many cases, prevented. By addressing the underlying awamil that contribute to instability, it is possible to significantly reduce the likelihood of falling and to maintain a higher level of independence and confidence. Understanding this reality places control back where it belongs. It shifts the focus from reacting to falls after they occur to proactively strengthening the systems that prevent them. It reinforces the importance of intentional movement, structured exercise, and ongoing attention to the body's functional capacity. When these elements are prioritized, the risk of falling is no longer left to chance, but is actively managed through preparation and resilience. There is a tendency to believe that maintaining physical health after 60 requires complexity, multiple exercises, long routines, specialized equipment, and constant variation. This belief often leads to inconsistency, confusion, and eventual abandonment. In reality, the body does not require complexity to remain strong and capable. It requires consistency applied to the right movement patterns, particularly those that directly translate into everyday function. Among these, one foundational movement stands above the rest in its ability to restore mobility, reinforce stability, and preserve independence. This movement is not unfamiliar. It is something performed in some form every single day. It involves transitioning from a seated position to standing and back again. While it may appear simple, it is one of the most functionally demanding actions the body performs regularly. It requires coordinated effort from the hips, thighs, core, and even the upper body to maintain control and balance throughout the motion. When performed correctly and consistently, it becomes a powerful tool for rebuilding strength and reinforcing the body's ability to support itself. The importance of this movement lies in its direct connection to independence. The ability to rise from a chair without assistance is a clear indicator of lower body strength and functional capacity. When this ability declines, reliance on external support begins to increase. What starts as using hands for assistance can progress to needing stable objects and eventually help from another person. This progression is not inevitable, but it becomes likely when the underlying strength required for this movement is not maintained. Mastering this movement does more than strengthen muscles. It trains the body to coordinate multiple systems simultaneously. The muscles must generate force, the joints must remain stable, and the nervous system must regulate balance and alignment. This integrated demand makes it far more effective than isolated exercises that target only one muscle group at a time. It teaches the body to function as a cohesive unit, which is exactly what is required in real-life situations. Another critical aspect of this movement is its adaptability. It can be modified to match any level of ability. For those with limited strength, the use of a higher seat or light hand support allows the movement to be performed safely while still providing a meaningful challenge. As strength improves, these supports can be gradually reduced, increasing the demand on the muscles and enhancing the benefits. This scalability ensures that the movement remains effective over time, continuously promoting improvement rather than stagnation. Consistency is the factor that determines its impact. Performing this movement with intention, control, and proper form on a regular basis creates a cumulative effect. The muscles of the lower body become stronger, the joints more stable, and the nervous system more responsive. Over time, this translates into greater ease in daily activities, improved balance, and a reduced risk of falls. The body becomes more reliable, more capable of handling both routine tasks and unexpected challenges. The simplicity of this approach is what makes it sustainable. It removes barriers, such as the need for equipment, travel, or complex instruction. It can be integrated into daily life, performed in a familiar environment, and adjusted as needed. This practicality increases the likelihood of adherence, which is essential for long-term success. A simple, effective movement performed consistently will always outperform a complex routine that is rarely maintained. The broader implication is clear. Preserving independence does not depend on doing more. It depends on doing what matters most with consistency and precision. By focusing on a foundational movement that directly supports daily function, it is possible to maintain strength, stability, and confidence well into later years. This is not about minimizing effort. It is about directing effort where it has the greatest return. One movement, when understood and executed correctly, can influence multiple aspects of physical health simultaneously. It becomes a cornerstone, a reliable method for maintaining the body's ability to move, support itself, and respond to the demands of everyday life. In a world that often promotes complexity, this approach stands out for its clarity and effectiveness. It reinforces the idea that the most powerful solutions are often the most fundamental. By mastering this single movement, the foundation of independence is strengthened, and the trajectory of aging can shift from gradual decline to sustained capability and control.